All right. Well, we might as well get started. We're just after 6, so we'll do that. So just so we know how it'll kind of run, we'll do sort of the regular meeting and all the business and stuff first, and then do the AGM, which will be pretty short. So I don't think all of it will take too much time, but we'll start with the regular meeting. So I'll acknowledge we're on the, I spelled the word acknowledge on my agenda. Sorry about that. So just acknowledging we're on the unceded territories of the Shuswap and Mukachesit peoples, and we appreciate our ability to be able to meet on these lands and with their blessings. On to introductions. We have a bunch of people around, so we'll just make sure everybody knows who everyone is. We'll kind of go around the table, I guess. So, Dan, you want to start?
I'm Dan Schubart, and I'm the secretary of AVTTS.
Awesome. We'll go online. So I'm not picking on you, Gail, but only because you're bigger in the screen. So why don't you go next?
Okay, I'm Gail Morton, and I work with Alberni Climate Action and Ocean Friendly Port Alberni and part of Transition Town.
Awesome. Mike, you want to go next?
I'm Mike Hughes. I'm a member of the Women's Food and Water Initiative, and I'm helping to guide the Alberni Valley Seedy Saturday into the under the umbrella of AVTTS through the food group.
Awesome. Janice?
You're muted.
Oh, you're muted.
Unmute. Janice Nairn, and I'm involved with the Alberni Valley Food Security Group.
Wonderful. Stephanie?
Hi there, I'm Stephanie Stevens. I'm here with the Food Security Group as well.
And I think that's everybody online, so we'll go around the table. Jim, you want to go?
I'm Jim. John Maba. I'm with Cycle Alberni and the Food Security Group.
Okay.
Just trying to keep our germs.
Hello. Okay. My name is Steve Vandrakis. I saw this event advertised on the newspaper and I was interested. So I'm new here and I'm just seeing what it's all about, and I will ask lots of questions when it's appropriate.
Awesome. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Monica Rose, and the same, I saw it in the paper, and I'm new and want to see what it's all about, and the same, ask questions when it's appropriate time to ask.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Great.
I'm Rob. I'm the treasurer for Transition Town.
Great. That's Kim. Pleased to have you. So just so the folks who are new, this is our regular meeting times for Transition Towns every Wednesday, every third Wednesday of the month. So we do our regular meetings, and we talk about sort of all the things that we have on the go. Today also happens to be our AGM, so we're doing that. And then at 7, the Climate Action Group is going to have a talk, and I'm trying to remember. I'm blanking on what the topic was. What was the topic, Gail?
The topic is our Alberni Climate Action contribution to the OCP.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Official community.
There we go. So that'll be at 7 after the meeting, really. And we don't usually go till 7. We might, just because of the AGM, but we'll see. I don't think it'll be very, very long. So you're welcome. If you have any questions about sort of any of the stuff that we're talking about during the meeting, you're welcome to ask any questions. And pleased to have you here. It's wonderful. That's a great question. So Transition Towns so this group started in 2008. And it started out of a movement that came from the UK. They were talking about transitioning in terms of both climate change, so transitioning to a greener world, reducing energy and carbon usage, all that kind of thing. And it was also in the context of peak oil, which was a big issue back then as well. But now it's very much focused on climate change and still transitioning to that sort of clean and green kind of world. So yeah. So we'll move into the agenda. Any additions or anything to the regular agenda that anyone might have before I move along? No? Okay, that's awesome. So our first bit on the agenda is just some unfinished business. I wanted to make sure people were aware of the Bird Street Ponds letter. So back at the beginning of September, the Bird Street Ponds group sent a letter to the province, and Alberni Valley Transition Towns was asked to support them, which we did, asking about the riparian area legislation, and trying to have that legislation enacted province-wide. I'm just going to see if I can pull it up on my computer. But so they were asking the province to, or why it wasn't already part of the provincial legislation, and sort of what they could do about that. So we did get a letter back from them on October 31st. So they sent it both to Karen St. Pierre, who's the head of the Bird Street Ponds, and myself for Transition Towns. And they said, regarding review of the riparian areas protection regulation, they said, when the original regulation was enacted in 2005, it was applied in areas of the province that were experiencing the highest development pressures. The ACRD was not included at that time. So they said the city of Port Alberni is encouraged to develop their own development permit areas to protect potential fish habitat, and the riparian area regulation provides methodology that indicates minimum required setbacks. So they sort of basically said we should go to the city and get them to do this stuff, which is all fine, and the Bird Street folks have been doing that. And they also said ministry staff are currently working on improvements to the existing regulation and associated tools, is what they say. Once the priority improvements have been completed, staff time will shift into other riparian protection and conservation tools, as well as exploring opportunities to expand the regulation more broadly across the province, which is not bad as far as response. Certainly no timelines. So who knows if that will actually happen, but that was kind of their response. So I put that up on the list. If you want to find it, you can find it on the Google Groups list. But that's that's that. Yeah, John.
It would be interesting to know if the concept of riparian protection is mostly focused on fish habitat, or if it also includes other species of wildlife.
Yeah.
Because I think if you were a detractor of, if you were really in favor of development, you could say, well, it's only fish habitat. There's no fish up there. It's just birds, beavers.
Yeah. And they mentioned they said the regulation does provide methodology that indicates minimum required setbacks to protect fish habitat. And then they mentioned the Federal Fisheries Act and the Provincial Water Sustainability Act. So they sort of do make it mostly about fish, which is interesting. But it also says the Water Sustainability Act protects all streams as defined by the Act from any works without appropriate authorization. But you know, the city can authorize anything. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I do know that they have sent letter to the city, and there was a suggestion to exchange the land to Suma's land.
Yeah.
So just a suggestion that they are looking at different things.
Yeah, yeah. And I saw that letter came out. When did that come out? Just after the fall fair, I think. Yeah. From Sand Group saying that they were thinking about that, which, yeah, who knows what might happen, but there's lots that could happen on there. Any other comments, anything online or anything? Make sure I'm remembering to look up there, but anything else about that?
I would just add that, did you hear me?
Yep.
That fish are our primary concern. I mean, because the Fisheries Act is the guiding legislation, as you probably know, and is really what you need to work with in this case. But it is I understand a coho drainage, and that and along with the Dry Creek estuary, all of that should be a primary concern to the DFO. So. At some point, they need to come to the table too.
Totally.
Yeah, I was just, Department DFO should be involved, but just referring to the strict definition of riparian, it does seem to refer to habitat along wetlands. So just not necessarily just fish. It might be useful in the ongoing conversation to expand if anybody.
Yeah, for sure. And it's wetlands as well, is it not? Yeah. Not just streams and rivers, but wetlands. Yeah. Yeah. It's broad. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Yeah, well we'll see where that goes. Obviously we'll make sure we're working with the Bird Street Ponds folks and the city, and we'll see how the official community plan works in all that. So yeah, it'll be pretty interesting to see how that all works out, especially with the new council. Don't have anything else under unfinished business. Upcoming events. Do we have any events or anything aside from tonight's talk? We have January is it me? Oh, November 23rd. What's November 23rd? Oh, is he coming back? No. Can you be more specific?
Well, Robert or Janice maybe might want to speak to that, or
Janice, can you fill us in on November 23rd?
You're muted, Janice.
Yeah, November 23rd is the energy saving seminar. We've got the 3 speakers and hoping for a good turnout. I think Mike Rattan's put a lot of work into it. So too has Tessa Hall, and I think it'll be quite enlightening. For we're hoping to, of course, to get some tenants, some landlords, and just ordinary old homeowners who are interested in perhaps reducing their energy bills. And then we also note that tomorrow evening the city is having what appears to be a meeting with contractors with regard to the step code. So there may be, we will also extend an invitation to contractors.
Great. Great. Anything else we want to mention?
Can I mention Nature Club things? There's
Yeah,
a
go for it. Absolutely.
nature foray tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock at Roger Creek. And what else? Yeah, that's it.
Okay. That's cool. Anything else? Okay. So we'll go to the subgroups, reports and things. Anything from education and networking?
Yeah, I posted a few things in the blog, and highly recommend that people set aside some time and take a listen to it, and follow links, and bring back any thoughts on it. Post them to the mailing list or bring them to meetings, whatever. But there is a ton of really interesting and engaging conversation out there about themes that are germane to what we're trying to do here, and it's well worth following them up.
That's on the website.
Yep. It's on the agenda.
Okay. So that's on the website on the agenda page, avtransitiontowns.org. Update from the food group. Stephanie or Genesis?
Janice, unless you really want to, I can go ahead. Okay, thanks. Excuse me. So I sent a little update of kind of our November happenings, which can also be viewed on the Transition Group website. Basically, we are playing a small part in the Nourish Fair, which is happening tomorrow at Glenwood Center. It's a free family event that will kind of promote different service organizations in the Valley. And for our part, we've been a lentil soup kind of takeaway kit to teach provide the ingredients and teach those to cook a lentil soup at home, and then also partnering with the ACRD on a local grocery giveaway game kind of thing. That's tomorrow, and then we also have our Doc Plus programming through Parks and Recreation has opened up for registration. So we have a few kitchen skills courses, including filleting a salmon, foraging, worm compost, no-knead bread, kombucha brewing, and knife skills. So if anyone's interested, they're more than welcome to check those out at playinpa.ca. And that's kind of what we're up to in November. And then we just had our meeting this afternoon. So I just wanted to address that. We spoke about CD Saturday, and that we would love to support this in capacities that were mentioned were promotions, volunteering on the day and for organization, maybe doing some children's activities, and kind of where else, and funding applications if they come up as well. So we're really excited to be a part of it. It seems like a natural fit for our group, and we appreciate the kind of knowledge and background that everyone brings to it that has been organizing it for years on end. So thank you very much. I think that's everything, unless anyone has any questions.
That's great. Any questions for the food group?
And feel free, John or Janice, to jump in if you have anything else too. Okay.
Cool. All right. Cycle Alberni. John, you want to go?
Okay, well, we had a very successful Go by Bike Week in October, and we were part of a provincial event that saw cyclists in BC cycle over 1 million kilometers. So that's quite substantial, I think. And in terms of our own local statistics, with 88 riders for over the 2-week period, that put us right up there with the Comox Valley, which I have always thought was a pretty rider-friendly community. And so I think if we're starting to get up to their level, then I think we're doing okay. I think we're doing very well, actually. And I just was in correspondence with Terry Lynn Gifford, the provincial coordinator, and I told her what a wonderful idea these lights are. I happened to win this as a prize this year because of some testimonial that I gave them about why I love to ride. And I told her how much I liked it, and I said, would we be able to get some of these as incentive prizes for a local? And she said yes. So in February, from February to the I believe it's the 12th or 13th, get out there and ride, and maybe you too will win one of these great bicycle headlights. Thank you.
Awesome. Those things are scary bright. They're very good. And they're magnetic, aren't they? As well as having a clip. Oh, they do? Oh, yeah. Nice. Nice. Awesome. Yeah, well, we're having our the Go By Bike AGM is the 23rd. So I'll be at that. Ocean Friendly. Gail or Jim?
Jim, do you want to go with that?
No, I don't, because you're the one that's been doing things, Gail.
I don't get out of it again.
Where it is posted in the on the blog.
Yeah. So we've had a pretty interesting time. We had another workshop to make the upcycled fabric grocery bags on the 24th, which went well. And Val Bagley gave the workshop at her home again, and thanks to her. Recently attended an event in Parksville because we're trying to connect with them on some projects that they're doing over there, specifically eelgrass mapping. But this particular project was sand lance and smelt sand sifting on a project together with VIU, Vancouver Island University, to figure out the kind of habitat eggs are needing and that they're found in. So that was on November 6th, and through the Mid Vancouver Island Habitat Enhancement Society. They actually have 11 different beach sites that they use, and the project has been going for about 2 years. And on the issue of our next venue for donating our fabric grocery bags, we hand delivered a letter to Tyler at No Frills, and we left him a package and a brochure and a letter describing a project of giving these bags away to help out with the upcoming federal ban on plastic grocery bags. Tyler's been very good, very friendly. He says he has to check it with head office back east, but Loblaws, of which No Frills is part, has a very interesting environmental clause in its policy. So hopefully that will go through. Let's see, Hahopayak School, the cleanup that other members of the group attended. Jim, I don't think you were there, but Amber and Anna and other members were there. That might morph into them joining us on the eelgrass mapping project if we get that going. So really hoping that can go. And I think that's all on that for now, unless Jim has anything to add.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Great. Any questions or anything? Comments or yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yes, could you explain about the mapping project?
I wish I could, Monica, but it's through the Mid Vancouver Island Habitat Enhancement Group, and it's a project that is coming up in the spring. I can tell you a tiny bit about it. It will be led by Nikki Wright, who started, I believe, the first eelgrass restoration beds on South Vancouver Island. And we did attend a workshop with her to tie the weights to the eelgrass cuttings so that she could then go out and plant them in Cowichan Bay during the summer. So hopefully I'll learn more about that in the spring when Nikki comes up, but also Nikki has said she will go anywhere and give a presentation to anyone because she's so passionate about this eelgrass restoration project. And nobody's mentioned Port Alberni, so I thought we better mention us because I don't know anything about eelgrass in the area. If anyone does, please speak up.
Oh, that's great.
Gail, has anyone talked to Phil Edgell?
Jim, do you happen to know? Okay.
Pretty essential, I would have thought. I thought that the estuary crew in the old days had a pretty good handle on all this stuff. I mean, they're well aware of its importance in salmon fry rearing.
Yeah, I haven't got to that point yet because I've been busy with other projects, but that's a good suggestion and I will contact Phil.
Actually, I do know a little bit. Sheila Falconer was working on it when she was with West Coast Aquatics, but I think nothing ever transpired.
Thank you.
Great. So that dovetails nicely into Dry Creek Estuary Group. So just an update on that. The submission to the city went in before their October deadline. I haven't heard anything back from them. They don't respond or anything, but it went into the kit, so that's all good. I also heard back from Josie Osborne's office because we had asked if we could meet with her and talk about things like funding and sort of opportunities that we could pursue to be able to help that project along. So she did, or her office at least did manage to get us a time. So November 30th, we're going to have a meeting there. So it'll be on Zoom. So anyone in the Dry Creek group or Transition Towns, you're welcome to take part in that. I'll send out the Zoom link to the Dry Creek list this week, and so that'll be super interesting. See what we can find as far as funding sources and other kind of supports from the province. So that'll be good. That's kind of all there is from that group. Any questions about any of that? Okay. We have Water Watch Coalition is on the agenda, but we don't have any updates from that. So I'll move into financials. Rob, do you want to just go through, or do you? Not really? Okay. Oh yeah, sure, go. Yep. So Water Watch Coalition is a Vancouver Island group. And previously we've been sort of connected to them. Honestly, Edna was our link to them for the longest time. We haven't unfortunately had a great link with them since then, but their focus is stewardship. Sorry, watershed stewardship. Yeah, watershed stewardship. Yeah, protection of watersheds and so financials, I'll just go through the numbers then. I'll go. It's okay. So we have, So we have all of the numbers are up on the agenda, so you can see them there. But we have in our transition towns account $1,219.67. The AV Food Security Group is at $44,344.05. Island Health is at $29,983. Systems change with the ACRD is $4,357.50. The Food RX, McConnell, Second Harvest, and Food Education. Food RX is at $3,303. Food RX is at $0 for the Second Harvest. Food Education is at $496.59. Crow Local is at $3,267.61. Gleaning is at $2,934.73. Cycle Alberni is at $2,861.13. And Alberni Climate Action, the count there is $1,868.38. And anything else you want to add?
If we could get more people that are on the transition email list to sign up for memberships, that would be fabulous. Because as we are a volunteer-driven organization, membership fees are what actually keep the lights on and help us to keep using this facility. So if you haven't signed up for a membership fee, I would strongly encourage you to do so. We have an option on the website through PayPal, or you can come to a meeting and bother me or Chris or Dan, and we'll make sure that you're on the list.
Yeah, and that's $20 for a membership. Oh, Stephanie, go.
I just had a quick question for Rob. And it was if the $100 for the fall fair booth had been transferred from the food group fund into the transition town account, and if you needed any paperwork or anything from me on that.
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for being so on top of it and doing it all.
Awesome. Any other questions or anything? Okay, great. So we're almost at the end of our regular agenda, so that's all good. Reports from other groups. Alberni Climate Action. Gail, do you want to say anything?
Just that, well, I should probably defer to Robert. Robert, did you want to go first?
Robert is saying no.
Okay. We do have some, after 2.5 years of waiting patiently, we do have some greenhouse gas emissions numbers for the corporation, the city corporation, plus the community of Port Alberni and the ACRD. But they're from 2012. And so we're wondering, and I did put a little more pressure on Marianne Wade at the city to find out if they have decided yet which numbers we're going to use as a baseline, because I honestly feel 2.5 years is a long time to wait, and we need those numbers to go forward so that we know if we're improving or not improving. Anyway, so I'm in the middle of waiting for an email back from Marianne and Rob Dickinson on that topic. I may request, if everybody thinks it's a good idea, I may request a periodic report from city crew to just keep that on the radar, that number on the radar. So Ken Watson, who used to be CAO of Port Alberni, was called in to over the past 2.5 years to rewrite the 2015 sustainability report, which I believe he has completed. And he's been very helpful in finally getting these numbers, at least from 2012. So I hope that will be helpful. We'll see what happens.
That's great, Gail. Yeah, those it's a real problem because like the 2012 numbers were created. I think we're talking about the same thing. The community inventory numbers were created by the province for each city, and then they stopped after that. So that's 10 years ago. That's eons. So I think it's good for us to put pressure on the city because that's going to make them put pressure on the province to either do it again on their end or the city needs to come up with a process and create those numbers themselves. So we have something to go on. So yeah, I appreciate the work to get that done because yeah, we can't accomplish anything if we don't know where we're at. So that's really important. The other part of that is I believe the city still has to, under the legislation, the carbon neutral legislation, they have to produce numbers as a corporation to figure out their net neutrality. And that's different from the community inventory that the province used to create. Those are not numbers that I've ever seen actually produced publicly. They send off that accounting to the province, and then they're supposed to get a certain amount of money back. The money back part has gone away. They don't do that anymore. They stopped that in, I think it was 2018, maybe. Mm-hmm. But I think they still have to do the accounting. So all long way around to say there's numbers out there, current numbers that are newer than 10 years. So I hope we can dig those out, and hopefully just the process of digging will cause them to take them a little more seriously. So thank you for that work, Gail and Robert.
Thank you, Chris.
Great. Well, anything else anyone wants to talk about for the regular meeting or at the end of our agenda?
Well, perhaps with Dan's assistance, we should offer an update on the merger or the organization of Alberni Valley CD Saturday.
Sure.
We have met a couple of times as a committee and sort of set the groundwork for an event on Saturday, Februally 11th at Echo Center, and are currently looking at various practicalities of staging an earlier in the season seed event to support some of the seed collection efforts in the valley and elsewhere. So as we get closer to the date, we'll share more details with you.
So that's about CD Saturday. So CD Saturday, yeah. So previously, CD Saturday was put on by the
Women's Food and Water Initiative.
Women's Food and Water Initiative. Thanks. sorry, Mike. And we were certainly supportive, but yeah, there's been sort of a more formal merger of minds and people and forces and volunteers and things to make it all happen in the next year. So that's beginning of February is the thought.
11th. Saturday, February 11th.
I just have a question. The date that Byron and Kaylee presented to us was the 3rd or 4th of February. So
was it the 3rd or 4th?
Yeah.
Let me double check.
It could just be, it's probably still in planning stages. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't quoting anything.
No, double check, but
When we left,
I don't have it.
Oh no, sorry, that's my mistake. My mistake. I was misreading that. I was looking at a different event. So
okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I was thinking of the Island Agriculture Show, which is February 3rd and 4th, and had mismatched the dates. So my apologies.
All
Sure.
the things happening at the same time. That's all good.
Yes. Yes.
And I think the Qualicum one is on the 4th as well, CD Saturday.
Yes, that's part of the strategy, is to avoid coinciding with other events of the similar nature so that we can attract vendors from all over.
Yeah.
We've not had an event this early in the season yet. We've always traditionally held our events, as you know, in March, late March. So this is a bit of a departure, but it is more seed focused, perhaps. And so we're still getting all our ducks in a row. So, but we were, first step is, of course, to get a show of hands from the vendors. So we know we have the critical mass to hold a substantial event and to bring out the numbers. It's a bit of a challenge, but we've tried to push the date ahead a little bit from late January into February in order to avoid conflicting with that busy January back to school period and that so forth. Also, just to give people a bit of a breathing room. So
sounds great. And you've applied for with Dan's help, you've applied for the community investment program. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes, Dan has submitted that proposal as of last week, I believe.
As of a week ago Friday.
As of Friday, a week ago Friday. Awesome. Great. Well, being conscious of the time, we'll make sure we move along. Just make sure we know when our next meeting is. I can't remember if we normally have a December meeting. The third Wednesday of December would be what?
21st.
21st. That's awfully close to Christmas. But what are people's feelings about a December meeting? Or shall we sign off until the new year? Yeah. Any thoughts? Christmas break. Char says Christmas break. Any opposition to the Christmas break? Okay. So our next meeting will be in January. The third Wednesday will be 18th. Yeah. Yeah. Great. So 18th. Yes. Awesome. Great. So that's great. Can I get a motion to adjourn this meeting? That's Dan. So it has been moved. Thus it happens because that's adjourning. Okay. So we'll fly straight into the general meeting. We have an agenda here. I'll try to be more official. So just a note, because it's an annual general meeting, when we do votes and things, it can only be members who vote. So that's paid members. Thank you, Rob, for keeping track. So we do have a number of paid members. So that's wonderful. So just so you know, Jim Wright, Judy Carlson, Dan Schubart, Robert Powelson, Gail Morton, George Bowden, myself, Chris, Sarah Thomas, Mike Udes, Robert Gunn, and Janice Nair. Well, that's what we have on our membership list so far. So that's for passing motions and for nominations for board. John, you should be on that too because you just did that. So John made a 2. Yeah. So approval of the agenda. Do I have any additions or anything for the AGM agenda? No. I'll get a formal motion to approve that if I could. So moved by Dan, seconded by John. All those in favor of passing the agenda? Thank you. Any opposed? Okay. approval of the AGM minutes from last year. They were on the website, or the YouTube was on the website, I believe. So any questions or additions or anything on the minutes? Can I get a motion to approve those? John? Second? Robert? And all those in favor of approving the minutes? Any opposed? Okay. All right. So next up is President's Report. I won't read through it all because that would take a very long time. But I have my President's Report up on the website. Really what I wanted to say through the whole thing was this year has been really busy, and really productive from all of the groups, including Alberni Climate Action and new focus on ocean friendly and Dry Creek Estuary, and Food Group is doing everything. And so it's been really, really great. And Cycle Alberni has been, at Fall Fair and doing so great at getting everybody on bikes. So it's just been a really positive year, and I want to thank everyone for all of their efforts. Everybody here and all of the volunteers that come out to all the various things, and people who are just interested in transition towns and in making all of this happen. So it's been a really wonderful year. So thank you. For everyone. So you can certainly see more if you want on there, but that would be very boring. So you probably don't want to read all that. I have Treasurer's Report. Mr. Treasurer, would you like to say anything?
We have money, but we can always use more.
There you go. So that's our Treasurer's Report, and the financials are in the meeting minutes for the November meeting. Any other reports from anyone? Okay. So what I'll do is I'll have a motion, if I can, to receive all of the reports. Moved by Dan, seconded by Rob Powelson. And all those in favor of receiving the reports? Thank you. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Great. So that brings us to election of directors. So our current directors, as it stands, are myself as president, Rob Powelson as treasurer, Dan as secretary, and then Jim Wright, and John Maba, and Gail, and Mark Dawson. So those are the outgoing directors. I'm standing again, if that is the will of the folks, to stand as president.
Gail has her hand up.
Oh yes, Gail.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm not actually a director. I don't want the title, but I've been doing the work. So if that
you were a
makes
director, sorry, during the year. Yeah. And your work was very much appreciated, whether you're a director or not. So I'm standing as president, and any others standing for other positions? We can do that.
Any other nominations for president? So Chris has expressed a willingness to continue as president. Are there any other nominations for president? Hearing none, I think we could declare Chris president by acclamation. Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
I want to nominate Rob for treasurer.
Rob, do you accept your nomination for treasurer?
I do.
Are there any other nominations or anyone who would like to stand as treasurer? Seeing none. Rob, you are still treasurer.
I'd love to be secretary.
Nominations for secretary. Dan's
So much.
he's loving his time as secretary. Any other nominations or anyone would like to stand to be secretary? Seeing none, Dan is secretary by acclamation. Other directors. Anyone else would like to stand again or for the first time as a director of the society? John, Jim. We can have as many as, I believe this is correct, 11 or 11 directors on a society, is my recollection. So just putting that out there. So Jim, John, anyone else would like to stand as a director? No? Okay. Then Jim and John, I believe, would be directors by acclamation. Thank you all for your work, and whether you are a director or not a director, certainly Transition Towns has always worked on an ethos that we're all here contributing, and hopefully the directors only have to get together on official director things very, very rarely. It's not fun. So there you go. So there, great. So that's our elections. Anything else that I've missed? No? Well, we're good to adjourn then. A motion to adjourn. So moved by Dan, and thus it has been adjourned. Thank you, everybody. It's before 7.
Yes. Chris, we'll keep the Zoom session going for the OCP review,
Yeah.
all right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you, everyone. And take it away with the Alberni Climate Action and the OCP.
Monica, do you have an internet connection? If you'd leave your email address, I will email you some links about transitions background. Interesting stuff, and because there's a ton of really fun stuff going on in various places.
I hope you enjoyed the meeting.
Yes, growing up in Scandinavia, I studied radio that is now 40 years later. And so I feel that I really believe in all of this all my life. I somehow I'm all in. Oh, in USA, 1972, about heat energy and you know what they. And I had, after my talk,
1972.
1972 in USA, they had foremoon because she's coming from a dirty country.
Wow.
They had no understanding of my speech that I had.
Welcome here, sir.
Yes.
So it's
Meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
Good. Thank you.
I must unfortunately run away. Family is waiting for me. Oh, great. No, I have to run away. Yeah. Dan.
Microphones everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm busy. Very kind, because I just got busy again for a second. No, my head is spinning. So do you want the?
Well, I'm not gonna say much.
You're not gonna speak, yeah. I know. Done,
Yeah, don't move your head.
The new? No.
So the city is mandated, the city is mandated to do an official community plan from time to time. And in Alberni, it has been varied from time to time because the last one was in fact about 14 years ago. So you'll often see the first stage of any new building or zoning proposal, they'll immediately do something that refers to them amending the official plan because it is so out of date, and what is being promulgated and for that lot or that street or whatever it is sort of outside the plan. So they turn around and amend it. So we're not suggesting the official community plan means an awful lot necessarily, but it is the planning framework of and the sort of aspirations of the village for the next 10, 15 or so years. So, yeah. They are right, my full Rod Stewart. So they entered into an agreement with an engineering firm last year that seemed to have gone south, and they've now picked up a new consulting firm, or they did in, when was it? January, February, I suppose. It was a bit later. The new woman came to town. She started shaking the trees, and has gone with a new group who have more or less started from the beginning again. So as far as we can determine, they have developed 7 touchstones, which are referred to on the website when you hunt around and find the OCP process. And this is the sort of general guiding principles under all such things as reconciliation and business and the environment and so on and so forth. So that they have gone back and are refining the words. I think they've sent one version to City Council. They got some modifications. They then went out in June, July, August with a public consultation process, a number of meetings. Some of you will have attended them. Anyway, we're really not sure where the process is at the moment. Back in January of this year, we submitted a 26-page, quite extensive document that had basically 6 parts. We looked at city operations, for example, streetlights, ice skating rinks, and so on, transportation within the city, city building codes and zoning, solid waste and recycling, water systems and liquid waste, and natural asset management and nature-based solutions. So the trees and parks and the other assets that the city has under their control. So the point of this was we were looking at these sectors, call them what you will, with a view to the amount of greenhouse gases they produce and where savings might be able to be made, in the case of the city operations, directly by the city, obviously enough, but in transportation such policies as encouraging the use of electric bikes, electric vehicles, and so on. Setting building codes, looking at energy use, looking at the role of natural gas, looking at zoning and perhaps a more walkable city. So we put, as a group, in remarkably short time, quite a lot of work into this, and it is fair to say at the moment that we really don't know what will happen with it. Last week, I wrote Marianne Wade, who was the new lady that came to town, and certainly is a breath of fresh air when it came to the planning department, and clearly her role is to push through an OCP and to work with the consultants to do the study to get something to the new council by, well, we don't know what date, whether it's sometime in June or July next year. We've got no idea what their timeframes are. Anyway, I wrote to her, nice friendly email last week, and haven't received boo back. So we basically do not know whether or not our document is going to have any legs at all, whether we're going to get any private one-on-one session with Frank Consulting. We don't know how they are going to, how much more citizen input they're going to do beyond these 7 sort of key steps, or the 7 paving stones, their touchstones as they call them. So I thought we might just spend a very few minutes this evening before everyone wants to get home, looking perhaps at activities that we might be able to do outside the OCP process. For example, a couple of weeks ago, Jim here made the comment that the bus routes are not necessarily particularly friendly, not particularly useful if you were trying to use the buses to go to work, for example. So you start inquiring, well, what's required to talk to BC Transit about some changes in the bus service, and it turns out you've got to do a transportation plan to do that. And the last transportation plan wasn't done 14 years ago, but it was done about 10 years ago, and it wasn't a full plan at the time, according to the engineer. And so these plans are 50% shared, basically, between the city and BC Transit. And presumably, you have to kid the city to put it into their budget for such and such a year, and you have to also get the city to lean on BC Transit to put some money in, and then a study is done. So it's all along. So everywhere you look, there are all these long processes. So we just wondered if there was some merit in having a few minutes discussion on what sort of activities we might be able to take, and what sort of lobbying, what sort of key concerns that people might have with regard to the generation of greenhouse gases within this community, and what sort of efforts we might be able to make with City Hall, city staff, and with our fellow citizens, for that matter, to reduce them. So I think that's really the question before us this afternoon. If we can't get very much further with things sort of mandated under the official community plan, are there things we can do that are off the side of that that still contribute towards the reduction in greenhouse gases from this community of, I don't know, 24,000 people, if we take the whole valley into account. So there's the challenge. I mean, you don't want us to see the pages of recommendations that we've made. A lot of them good stuff, but very tenuous. That the city encourage and support the reductions of community greenhouse gas emissions, including major industrial sources, or that that training and professional development opportunities be used to further enhance staff understanding of climate change. These are the sorts of things we were just trying to draw to the attention of the consultants. And we go through transportation in particular is particularly large. And we're just wondering, as I keep saying, what can we do that could be small projects that might be entered into with individual departments or individual organizations. So I will shut up.
And I remember when Sherry Minions was starting her campaign before she became mayor of the the first time. And she was talking about planting trees, like on, some of it sounded a bit unrealistic, like planting trees down Johnson Avenue and that sort of thing. But a lot of cities now are, encourage or planting a lot of trees, partly because it saves a lot of air conditioning costs and makes the city more livable and that sort of thing. So I know she has a bit of an interest in that. And I'm not sure what the city is, if the city has an actual plan. I see once in a while they take a few trees out, they put a few in, but there's not much net gain, I don't think.
Just to add to that, I'd like to, I'm curious, I'm very new in town and just trying to find my way around and learn a bit. And I moved from Vancouver, and over time, the city of Vancouver had done tree programs where they make trees widely available to all the residents. And I don't know if Port Alberni's ever, I see boulevards here where trees could be planted related to that. So, a suggestion to the city maybe about some tree programs. I've had my first Port Alberni summer here and was quite astounded at and related to that, just a sort of silly question, but does anybody know why the Sand Group took out all those trees along their property? Did anybody see that yet? Why did that happen?
I think basically they killed them by raising the level of the soil around them above the natural level. Now, not to say they weren't very old in the first place. So the answer to the question is that we've got food in January. It'll be interesting to see whether or not we can get Amy Niederham, who's the new employee of Parks and Rec, who's in charge of all of the natural, in charge of the parks, the boulevards, trees, tree growing. I mean, many of you will have noticed the fairly innovative use of these watering bags this summer. So she is a woman that's come from Alberta, very well trained, right up to date with modern thinking. And I believe that we will be able to have in January or February or March a very good evening here at Char's after a TT meeting, and really put her on the spot around this stuff, because I feel that there's lots of things she wants to do, and it may well be that this is an area where we're being more as a lobbyist than anything else, and backing up the sort of things that are needed for cooling, as you point out. Also, invasive species, on the dangers of ivy, for example. So there's no question that our submission included natural asset management and nature-based solutions. We're not unaware of those as both greenhouse gas absorbers or users. She also, interesting enough, points out that if the dike really is a dike that is to hold water as a berm, it's undesirable to have large trees growing because roots have a tendency to weaken dikes. Anyway, just an interesting aside. Sorry.
Just a bit further. Amy is the engineer who's been hired by the city, or is she a counselor?
No, she's a city employee.
Yeah.
So she works for Willa Thorpe, who's the director of Parks and Rec.
Okay.
And Amy's title is
I think she's my neighbor, actually. I think I know her. And if so,
parks.
we're in good hands.
Yes.
Just in addition, the Vancouver tree program has often over time included food trees also.
She has spoken, I think. Maybe she likes squirrels.
Or not.
Yes. So we looked at, as I say, we looked at city operations, transportation within the city, solid waste and recycling, which we had to admit had improved dramatically over the 10 years, well outside any OCP process, water systems and liquid waste, and natural assets. We did draw in the report, we drew attention to the likelihood of increasing sea level. We looked at the possibility of flooding and the changes from perhaps orderly snowpacks to high river runoffs following river, what do we call them, atmospheric river events. With regard to city building codes, we were pushing the idea of new buildings going away from natural gas and new buildings being very as thermally efficient as they could be made. And we'll hear more about that next week with Mike Rattan speaking about the modifications he made to both the apartment block and the new construction that Alberni Low Energy have just finished on Maitland. So I guess it comes back to, are there other things that we should be pushing as a group? Gail.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. Regarding natural gas, I was looking into seeing if there were ways to limit natural gas pipelines or any new stuff going in to town. And with due to an association with a group in Nanaimo, learned from one of their counselors that they don't have in the municipal government, they don't have the power to go that route, but they do have the power and are currently working on bylaw choices that people can make. And I believe one of them is to tax, how does this work? To tax heavier if you have natural gas or oil, and to either remove the tax or give incentives for people that are going to heat pumps, for example, so that because the citizens are given a choice, that can work, whereas trying to just ban any more pipelines does not work. So it would be maybe an idea to have one volunteer with Alberni Climate Action look into that. And another idea would be the city is supposed to be educating us on climate, on environment. Saanich has developed an excellent slide series on all the major areas where we can make a difference reducing greenhouse gases, so that Saanich has also given us access to that slide series to use the templates if we wish. That's another possible project. And another one might be just no more new gas stations. We could easily put together a presentation on that topic, and that is being done and looked into in other places on the island as well. So just a few possibilities, but I think we would need a volunteer to work on each one. I don't know.
Thank you, Gail. Well, yes, and of course that raises the issue of no more drive-throughs either. I mean, maybe the first thing should be that we might do in the new year is sit down once again and meet with the councillors, or at least the new ones, and try and get some sense as to how concerned they are and where they're coming from. Are they, in fact, generally aware of the crisis, and do they have any strong feelings about their roles as leaders in the community and actually getting down and doing something about it?
I know Dustin Dame definitely has an interest. And I wondered if he might be the new liaison to Transition Town. Dan, do you happen to know anything about that? No? Because we're being given another liaison from the city. It would be really good to have Dustin or maybe somebody who we could educate, one of the other counselors. I don't know if you get a choice or not with Transition Town.
I know Dame came to the last meeting, and he ran on a platform of being concerned about the environment. So he's probably looking for things he can do.
Yeah.
And of course, we do know it's well established in City Hall that without some allies, you can't do very much. So perhaps we need to help him build some alliances or do some work with some of the others to see if there are 3 or 4 of them that will at least live up to the pledge that the city has already made and try and put some teeth into some of their actions.
Roy Brooks from the Municipal Natural Asset Initiative is willing to come and speak to our council. That's something I forgot about. As an idea.
I wonder if that raises the issue, should we try and meet informally with Amy at some point to see when that would be most advantageous from a tactical point of view? Clearly with January, February taken up with, trying to learn the ropes a bit, and then they get into budgets and all these other things. At what point will we actually get some attention from some of these people?
I think we should jump in before they get overloaded. Because from my understanding, they are all extremely overloaded. And this is one of the main, well, for me, the main issue of our time.
Are we looking for it was suggested last night, a couple of nights ago at the Cycle Alberni meeting, a temporary accessible path along Stamp, and that's something we could persuade them to do. Yeah, it is working fine. This is technology.
May I say something about transportation? I'm very much for trains. And so that is something that I feel that getting the train going from Port Alberni all the way back to Victoria would be fantastic. I do know that there was supposed to be a meeting that was cancelled, unfortunately. But if we could all get the train going, that would benefit everybody. Also, there's another train called virtual train, and that is something that goes with a wheel and not with rail. So that is also green, 100%. And so I feel that we should concentrate on generations from this moment on and try to get the train going again, because the line is there, and to cooperate with everybody on Vancouver Island. But a quick way to get a small train is this virtual train that could start immediately. Thank you.
Yeah, I think a virtual train sounds like a cool idea. I mean, we have an even more urgent crisis now because I think, as I understand it, the bus service is down to 3 days a week. And I mean, that's outrageous for a town this size, and that's something we could work on. And the third suggestion would be to have us work on getting them to start work on the transportation plan so that we can change the local bus system.
Okay, so we'll write a letter to Rob Dickinson asking him to put the need for a transportation plan into his budget for 2023. So that's something we can do right now. So can Cycle Alberni, can they lead the fight with regard to Stamp Avenue then?
Yeah, well, as Jim said, we did have a meeting the other night, and I guess meetings like that are important to me because you know, I ride my bike around town every day, and I'm kind of like a bat out of hell. I don't really care what Stamp Avenue looks like. I just go tearing down there. But it strikes me when I have these meetings that everybody isn't quite that stupid, you know. And a lot of people are really hesitant to go from one end of Port Alberni to the other. And I think that if we had a more accessible, bike-friendly route on Stamp Avenue, that would probably encourage a lot of people to, you know, to commute more often. We did kind of conclude at our meeting the other night that we need to go to the city engineer, Rob Dickinson, and get an update as to just where everything is in terms of planning. One of the big things that is of concern is the whole issue of intersections. We've got a couple of intersections in town here that are literally deadly for cyclists. We've lost 2 cyclists in the last 6 years at 2 of the intersections, and the city did actually approve some changes to those intersections, but nothing's happened yet. So we've got to get on that with them as well. So we will be pursuing you know, the plan anyway. So that probably will be, you know, in conjunction with what you're suggesting there, with a greater overall transportation plan.
Could I just say something? There is, parallel to Stamp Avenue, there is that walkway, bikeway. Couldn't that just be fixed up? And also, I know what you mean about the intersections, because say down at the bottom of Johnson, they're telling the drivers go, they get a green arrow, and then the pedestrians or bikers get a white sign, go. So you're telling both groups to go at once. And the one down at the bottom of Rogers almost the same. And then there are a few of those grates that you can catch a bike wheel in. So yeah, there definitely needs to be some improvements. Yeah.
Have you cyclists on the street noticed any increase in industrial traffic between the SAN operations from the Sazai Road to the paper mill? Gail, were you and Dave going to attend the meeting tomorrow night with the step code?
Are you talking about the one the city is putting on?
Yes, with the contractors.
Last time we talked, Robert, we just discussed the possibility of one of us going. So I don't know what your thoughts had been on that.
Well, it wouldn't. Okay, well, I think we better get moving on. I think we should find someone to attend. I think just to monitor what's going on, the general attitude, the questions being asked. You know, what sort of, is there any pushback? What appears to be the sentiment in the room would be interesting to know, wouldn't it? Who is there within the group that was particularly knowledgeable about step codes?
Bonnie.
Yes, that's right. Okay, yeah. So I'll talk to Bonnie and Mike tomorrow and see if one or other of them are going. That would be a good idea. Okay.
Robert, could you tell the group what step codes are?
Step codes are the new BC building code that addresses houses and apartment blocks and commercial, residential, and so on. The code is well laid out, but it's not in fact being promulgated for some reason or enforced. No, it's not mandatory to have been adopted until about 2032 for some reason, best known to John Horgan's saintly self. However, individual municipalities have adopted it already. Courtney Comark's, Nanaimo, I think. And as far as we can gather, there have been no noticeable reductions in economic activity due to these higher standards. The resulting buildings are closer to net zero. They would be much cheaper to live in from a tenant's point of view, although they are very dependent upon the HVAC system. For example, the new one at Maitland Place there on the corner of Maitland and 9th, or 8th and 9th, none of the suites have opening windows. The only opening windows in the building beyond the front door, the front and back doors, are some patios off the laundromats or the laundry facilities on each of the floors. So it is certainly a different way of living, I suppose, but people have noticed significant reductions in what they had been previously paying to hydro for heating. So we do know that BC housing money coming into town for example, the women's society's new building up there by the stadium, and some of these other big projects, those are all being built to the step code, but private investments in apartment blocks and so on, that's not yet required. So what we've been saying to the city is that look, we know the price of energy by 2030, 2050 is going to be through the roof, and it's incumbent upon you to be getting with the program and setting standards that or being prepared to adopt standards that are already being adopted by other jurisdictions.
Yes, I have a suggestion. In some of the European countries, what they do is they have solar panels on the roof. So what they do is the solar panels produce more power than one building can handle. So the extra energy goes back to the city. So they get credit for it. So in this way, you don't need at all anything else than put solar panels on the buildings and sell it to the city. Everybody wins in this situation.
Yes, you're quite right, and Monica, and we know that that Mike and Bonnie and their society tried very hard to get solar panels onto the carports and some roof area that they had at Maitland, and despite having a pretty good return on investment, they were unable to get that financed. So it's been quite a frustration. And certainly, BC Hydro does have the system where you can give them the extra kilowatt hours in the summer and take it back in the winter. So the ideal situation would be that the house or the property would be sort of at net zero by the end of the year, and you're using their lakes as a battery, and Hydro are happy. They're getting cheap kilowatts when people are using them for cold air, what's it called, for heat pumps and so on, and they're not having to run down their lakes. And so the system is in place to do that, but it's not being widely adopted.
It's not being much used. The system exists, it's just not being very widely used.
So, yes, for example, I have 32 solar panels on my house, and I produce about 10,000 kilowatt hours a year, which will probably be about what we use now that we've got some heat pumps. It'll be interesting to see by the end of this winter. And of course, this summer was down because of the bad spring. But in general, it is quite possible to enter into a relationship with BC Hydro that you produce kilowatts for them, and then you buy it back from them in the winter, or you swap it back in the winter, and at the end of the year you hope to be more or less even.
Yeah,
You start getting money back.
Well, the money, but the money back is nickels and dimes.
I have to say, I mean, this isn't California and it isn't Alberta. You know, we do have a lot of cloudy, foggy days here. So I agree with what you're saying. And, you know, the other frustration I have is that we keep hearing in the news about how the cost of solar panels is going down, down, down. But I think, Robert, you and Esther know that it's still extremely expensive to put solar panels on your roof. You know, it's still pretty prohibitive.
Yes, you're quite right. The fact of the matter is that it is not a particularly good investment if you're looking at it from an investment point of view. That buying hydro from BC Hydro is still some of the cheapest in the world, and we have to be aware of that. I think. I mean, it's just quite a different system, a different situation in if our electricity was being produced by coal or oil, it would absolutely make sense to be reducing the use of those very dirty fuels to produce hydro.
I have a question. What are your thoughts on hydrogen for a fuel source?
Oh, you know, I'm sure that it'll be right up there in some years' time. I think the question is what energy do you use to separate the hydrogen and the oxygen to produce the hydrogen? And it's quite clear, I think, that until BC has surplus cheap hydro, it's not and a market for the resulting hydrogen. It's not clear that it's not clear to me that there'll be an awful lot happening in British Columbia. It may be, in fact, that one of the problems we have in BC is that our population has been increasing faster than our ability to reduce our personal greenhouse gases. So it could well be that when we start doing all these audits for municipalities and so on, we actually find that because of population increase, our greenhouse gases are going up, not down, even though, you know, people are converting to electric bikes, people are converting slowly to cars, people are putting in heat pumps and so on and so forth. You know, the sad truth is that population increases are mitigating against us. It's pretty clear, I think, that that we'll see some fairly significant hydro projects out of, hydrogen projects out of Australia. I think we might even see some out of Eastern Canada with the possibility of export to Europe as well.
About climate change, there is a portion of climate change which is happening naturally, and then there's the portion that we contribute to. One thing I would like to see tomorrow, because I'm a contractor, and I'll be at that STEP meeting, is to see how do we prepare. I mean, I think it's almost inevitable. They're talking about polar caps are going to be melted, and it's an inevitability at this point. So what are we doing to prepare for not going to be living in a comfortable climate any longer? We're going to get more aggressive weather. So why aren't houses being designed to handle that? I mean, when I took the course to become a ticketed carpenter, we learned how to bolt down a house so it doesn't fly away in a storm. And a lot of houses don't have to be built to those standards. Well, I mean, it's not required unless you live in that area. And you look at some of the devastation that's happened, especially around Florida, where people have lost everything. So if we're going to be preparing for a harsher climate, if that means we don't allow any new construction right at the water line, start 5 meters up or 10 meters up, give us another 100 years, and that whole front water line could all become parkland or a walking space or communal space. Why do we have to let rich people live right there on the water? Sorry.
I'm just going to respond to that because that's exactly what the SOMAS lands group that Chris was talking about it's one of the concerns that we don't build more housing in the floodplain which is also a tsunami zone in Port Alberni. So we're actually working on that a little bit here.
I'd just like to add, it's also condemned soil, the whole area. So if you put any kind of housing there, then you're going to, when people move in, they're going to be ill. And do you want to really do that? Absolutely not. What I think Port Alberni has to really focus is we have the Sun Group, but they cannot sustain Port Alberni. Port Alberni needs another income. And what is it? It's the deep sea port. And why aren't we utilizing the deep sea port? So now we have to focus on there's the 3 berths and 2 are condemned. 1 can be utilized, but the one that can be utilized is not up to date. So if we can try to utilize the one we have and grow from there. So in 30 years, 4/5 of the income of the harbor has gone down. So Port Alberni is now hanging on the last 1/5. We are dying. So we have to focus on a deep sea port that is 350 meters deep, a fabulous place. And when I was in World Maritime University in Malmö in Sweden, Vancouver was the worst harbor in the world of all the harbors. Now Port Alberni could stand up and actually take over from this moment on, and we could bring a multi-billion-dollar industry. So I think we have to really focus on our harbor and go from there. Thank you.
Just to add to that, if we bring in extra boats, we're looking at trucking, and trucking right now is on diesel. So until a lot of that converts to electric, which hopefully in the next 5 years, 10 years, if we increase our trucking traffic right through the city, we're looking at a lot of carbon that's being released thanks to that. I mean, yes, I like using the deep sea port, but that's a federal lands.
It is federal.
So
you have to bring the city. So it's federal and the city, and so it's a multi-level. But what I'm also trying to say is that all the trucks are already electrical in Europe. So we are 40 years behind here. So you have to focus on electrical trucks, but also with this, that the ships are also made out of electricity, and also we can use tugboats, and we can move from A to B to C, and we have so much land, and it's just, think how much. Have you ever taken the ship from here to Banfield? All that could be planned and figure out how we can develop that in the same way as Quebec City has with their big port on the other side of Canada. We can do it exactly here, and we can go straight from here to Hawaii, to California, to Mexico, and the rest of the world. We don't need to go anywhere else.
Well, it's interesting. The port has come up. I do hear a buzz. As I've already said, I'm really new in town, but I've lived for 30 years just above the Port of Vancouver. And if the port is going to expand, run screaming. Sorry, but it is so noisy and there is so much truck traffic. In the last few years, the port has expanded 26,000 acres, which has taken up more waterfront, which has and I swear lately I've been thinking somebody needs to do decibel testing for the noise levels off the port. Anyway, there's lots of arguments to and fro, I'm absolutely sure. As a new resident of Port Alberni, it'll break my heart to watch that happen here. Also, I was going to ask, it's interesting that it comes up because one of my questions for the meeting and the end of the meeting possibly was, is there a branch of this group? Is there anyone associated with Transition Town who's thinking, listening, talking about the port? Is it in the, I know that it's federal generally, but who's thinking about it, looking at that, listening here in town at this level? Is there concern? I mean, I think there's probably lots of support, but there also might be some fears.
I can answer to that. Joe Spears is one of Canada's best experts that has moved over to Port Alberni. His name is Joe Spears. He has done studies 20 years. He has written articles in several magazines. He has been also on TV, and he has also worked in Ottawa. And any kind of questions regarding federal government, he also wrote the OPP for Canada, so he knows the law inside and out. So if you really want to know anything that has to do with law, ask him.
This happened before my time, but a few years, what was it, maybe 8 years ago, 10 years ago, that there was a proposal to truck coal from Cumberland to this and export it from this port, and there was quite an active group opposing it.
I do see in this area, for one thing, I've already sort of had a sense of some influx and maybe some change in some populations and demographics and some changing emphasis on the way this place views itself. And I also see from an outside perspective, so many other economic opportunities. Ecotourism is on the map worldwide. This place has things that literally very few other or no other places on the planet have anymore in terms of the natural setting here. So anyway.
I like to respond and say that Port Alberni is a beautiful place. I'm brand new. I've been here only 1 year. Here's a tremendous amount of opportunity, but we also see how down Port Alberni has gone. I know this because I've been here in Port Alberni before, and also my late husband's father worked for Macmillan Burdell. I know how Port Alberni used to bloom and look fabulous. We need to think progressively, and we need to think how we go green forward, and what asset does Port Alberni have, and that is gift from God, and that is the deep sea port. Now focus on the blue economy. We should bring the blue economy to Port Alberni. That is something that would be perfect over here.
Yes, although of course it's worth remembering that the port has been throughout its life an export port as opposed to an import port. But your point's well taken with regard to the blue economy. There's a lot of hot air or hot water in aspects of it, but I do think that we need to try and find out just where there is the real skin and real rubber meeting road in the blue economy. We're aware, for example, of increased seaweed production and further down the inlet. There are aspects of it happening, but not very fast. Let's return to housing for just a minute, though. I take your point, and it'll be interesting tomorrow night at the meeting whether or not there's any discussion on given the age of the housing stock in this town and how old most of it is, does anyone foresee aggressive programs at retrofitting, or what do you do about old housing stock that are energy sinks, that are leaking heat, that are expensive, and it'll be just very interesting to see whether or not there's any sentiment in the room about what to do about older buildings.
One thing I'm coming across is a lot of renovations where customers, especially new customers, not existing customers, I should say, or owners, they got a mortgage, they bought their house, they got a line of credit with their mortgage, and now they want to renovate. And now they want to look at changing out the windows. They want to increase, or a lot of houses don't have insulation, and the current owners either have no money and they have no ability to change. So their only option is to sell. And so I don't know what kind of incentives we can offer them other than pay for it, as a community, which we don't want to do. And some of these people have been in their house their whole lives, which is great. But at the same time, asking them to invest $30,000, $40,000. One option would be to encourage them to do a reverse mortgage. And that means the money gets pulled out prior to them passing or giving it over to whoever's going to inherit it. They take the money and now they can upgrade it. But again, if they feel comfortable paying that those rates, I don't know what to do to encourage them to invest $30,000-$40,000 so they can have a lower rate. That's a very interesting. I'd be more interested to go after the new construction, and especially people who are buying in, because I've seen in the last 2 years especially a huge growth in speculation. Unfortunately, these people will buy a place and they'll live there for a year and they will sell it. And I've watched the same house because I Google an address so I can have Google Maps on my phone, so I can go straight to their house to go look at a job. And it shows me the listings of all, like every time this address was listed online. So we go from 250 to 350 to 450 to 550 to 750, and it just keeps flipping. And yet I bought our house so we can raise kids in and retire in, and I'm one of those people. And I don't plan to ever sell my house, but that's me. And I'm a very minority right now. Good. There's a lot of young new buyers that are coming from out of town because they saw an opportunity to increase the prices, just like Vancouver, and they say, "Oh well, the house is now we're almost hitting the $1 million mark already in a lot of houses." I can see it slowing down with the increase of the interest rates and with an incoming recession. So now it has flipped very quickly. But I don't know how to encourage people to spend the money out of their pocket to go and renovate their own house. I mean, at best, it's a patchwork. So it's going to be a big problem as to how are we going to encourage them to change. If we're looking at how much is this house using electricity wise, If you want to cut off the natural gas, okay, then they have to convert to electrical. So there's a cost just to convert. Some people even have fears about if a natural disaster or some interruption and they have no heat. There's these people just here off of one in Mar that the block was down for 3 days, no electricity. And I know I'm very familiar with those people there because I've got family there. And 4 of the houses all have wood stoves. So they survived, they were fine for heating wise. But otherwise, 3 days they had no electricity. I don't know how to address that either. You just hope that these things don't happen, but they do. So there's a lot of questions at play here.
One thing I've taken advantage of since I have a modest income and I'm a senior, BC Hydro has some programs, ECAP, I think, ECAP. So if you're low income, I got free insulation in my attic, and I also got a new fridge, which is nice. But you do have to submit an income form, and for most people they wouldn't qualify. But for people on low incomes, it's a nice way to get, make your house more energy efficient.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it a week from today, there's going to be a discussion here about heating and retrofitting, and there'll be 3 experts talking about that very thing. Everybody go around with their names again. I'm Steve. Steve. Yeah. With a K or C? C. What is the name?
The step those.
Monica?
Dean, DEAN.
My name's Kim Bothan.